Hey there! Today we are going to be making 4 Easter spring DIYs. Let's get right into it. For the first DIY, I am going to be upcycling this mint tin, and I'm going to be giving it 2 coats of some white acrylic gesso. I like to use the Artist Loft brand from Michaels. It's a really nice and smooth consistency. I like to use gesso on slick surfaces, or if the paint is really dark like this red, it just really helps craft paint to adhere better. I'm going to allow it to dry well in between coats. And now I'm going to be using some chalk paint mixed with a cream colored craft paint just to lighten it up a little bit. The green is New Life chalk paint from DecoArt. And I'm going to now give my tin 2 coats of this chalk paint. Again, allow it to dry well in between coats. I want to welcome you all to CreArtive by Nature, DIY and Decor. My name is Donna. If you're new to my channel, welcome, and I'd love for you to join my community by tapping on the subscribe button, along with the bell to keep up to date with everything I have to share. Once your tin is all dry, you can then start to decorate it. So I'm going to start off by adding this scrap piece of foam that I had from my stash left over from a previous project. I'm using some hot glue and I am adhering it to the bottom of the tin. So I'm using this preserved reindeer moss. I love to use this. I love the natural whimsical look that it gives projects. And I'm just using some hot glue and I'm gluing it to the back side of the lid as shown. Now I'm not adding any to the center. I'm kind of leaving that blank as best as I can, and you'll see why in a little bit. Now I am adding some moss to the foam area and covering that all up so you don't see all that green foam. Now I'm going to add my little figurines and some bits and pieces. Again, these are scraps from old projects that I've taken apart. I didn't want to throw those out. They are completely reusable. But first I want to make sure that my lid stays open in this position. So I added some hot glue to the inner portion of the lid and now here on the back, right where the hinges are. And that will prevent it from flopping open or closing in on your design. So this little bunny is from Dollar Tree last year in their summer gnome collection. I love this little guy. And again, this bird here is left over from an old project. You can see the stick is still there, so I'm going to utilize that. So this can be completely up to you how you want to design it. Use anything left over from old projects or little scraps that you have laying around. This is a great way to use up all those little pieces. So for a fun little added touch, I am using this spring sticker. It's from a collection that Dollar Tree had out last year. I love it. I am going to be removing the foam sticker first, and now I am going to be using these little wood beads and I'm going to glue them to the back side of this little sticker embellishment. I'm wanting it to pop out from my project, and I thought this would be the best way to do that. So once you have those beads glued into place, you can then figure out your placement and remove any excess moss that might be hindering your placement. And then using some hot glue, you can glue that cute little spring sticker into place. This is such a sweet little arrangement. This would be wonderful as a little gift, or if you want to place it in a little corner for some decor. Perfect for spring or Easter. I just think it's so sweet, natural, and whimsical. So today's video is part of the Using Trash to Create Treasure Challenge, hosted by Casey from Coffee with My Sunshine, and today's co-host is Mom from Mom Does Life Handmade. Both channel links, along with the playlist, are down in my description box below. Go check them out. There is lots of talent to be seen. So for the next project, you are going to need a jar. Any old jar will do, and you do need the lid. Any lid will work, whatever fits your jar. I have this tissue paper from Dollar Tree, some decoupage glue, and a paintbrush. This is gorgeous tissue paper. I picked it up from Dollar Tree, I think it was 2 years ago, and I love it so much. It's perfect for spring. I'm just going to rip it down into workable pieces. I'm just going to make sure that some of the floral design remains intact. Now, working in sections on the jar, I'm adding a layer of the decoupage glue. I am using the DecoArt brand. I love this decoupage glue, and it is a matte finish. You could use glossy if you'd like, that's up to you. So I've applied the decoupage glue, and now I'm going over top of it to seal the tissue paper down. I'm going to continue to cover my jar with my tissue paper in sections, and feel free to overlap it. You could also paint your jar first if you'd like, but I wanted a little bit of a translucent look, but that's completely up to you. Once your jar is all covered, you can then set it aside and allow it to dry well. Once dry, you can now work on the lid. I'm using this 3-inch styrofoam ball from my stash, and I'm cutting this in half. I'm just going to clean off the excess little bits that are left behind. Use a foam ball that's going to fit the top of your lid, depending on the jar and lid size that you're using. Using some hot glue, I am then going to press that half foam ball into place. Now, again, from my scraps, I had this old sleeve from one of the kids' old shirts. It was heading into the rag bag, but I thought it was a perfect spring color to create a hat. You might be knowing where I'm going with this one. I'm going to just tack the rim of this hat into place with some hot glue. You do want to create a little bit of a rim, and you'll see why in a minute. So I'm just folding it up once and then again twice, and then I have a really cute little rimmed hat. So I'm going to place this piece of fabric over the jar, and I will be tying off a little tuft at the top there in a minute, but first I wanted to glue this fabric into place onto my jar. So I'm working at the back side where you see the seam, glued that to the lid, and now I'm going to create that little tuft. So I have these 2 baby socks. They were left over from another project, and I have this scrap piece of felt again from my stash. It was just this little excess piece. I am going to be cutting out a shape like this, and I am going to be creating some bunny ears. So use any color that you'd like. I'm going to be using some hot glue to put these little felt pieces into place, but I wanted to figure out my placement first, just to make sure I have that glued into place properly. And also, if you need to pull the seam of your hat rim apart, feel free to do so. I had to. So once you got placement figured out, you can start to glue things together. So I am adding the inner portion of the ear onto the socks. And then I'm going to have to trim these down They didn't quite fit inside the rim the way I'd liked, so I'm just removing any bulk and excess fabric from these little baby socks. These baby socks are so cute. I picked them up at a dollar store. They're really nice and fuzzy, and I thought they would make the perfect little bunny ears. So again, I'm just figuring out my placement, and once I have the desired look, I am then just going to fold them back as shown and hot glue things into place. So by now I'm sure you figured out that we are creating a bunny gnome. I am going to be using this piece of scrap fabric. It is actually left over from a scarf, and I thought it's made the perfect material for a gnome beard. So I'm just going to cut it down into the shape of a beard that will fit the jar nicely. You could also use some yarn or scraps from an old jacket. I'm going to glue this beard into place. And also, just to let you know, I have made so many gnomes here on my channel. I will leave a link to the playlist down in my description box so you can see all the other ways I make gnomes. So you're just going to glue the beard into place. And I'm also going to start to tack down the rest of the hat into place, just on the lid as shown here. For the nose, I'm using this cute little pom-pom, and again, I'm just using hot glue, placing it under the rim, and here you've got the cutest little spring bunny gnome, perfect for Easter and your spring decor. This guy is so fun and whimsical. You could even put a pack of battery lights inside this guy to have a really pretty glow. Some treats hidden inside would be fun too. So for my next DIY, I'm using these scraps of yarn that were heading for the trash can, and I'm dipping them into a mixture of 2 parts decoupage glue and 1 part water, and I'm squeezing out the excess. I am then placing it into a container, and I am going to start to form a nest shape. I am inspired by nature for a lot of my creativity. So I thought it would be a fun way to create a bird's nest by using these scrap pieces of yarn that were heading for the trash can. And I really like the texture of this yarn. I allow it to set up and then pull it from the container. I then place this half foam piece to create the nest shape to form a little pocket for some little eggs. I really love how this looks so far. Very natural looking. Again, piece from nature, as that's what I love to work with. I got this branch that's got some forked pieces, and I'm going to adhere this nest to the branch. Again, I'm using just some hot glue, figuring out the placement, and then gluing the nest into place. I have a couple other tutorials showing how I use nests or make nests, so I'm going to leave those video links down in my description box below for you to check out. Here I'm just adding some extra hot glue to make sure that nest stays into place. So once your nest is secured to the branch, you can start to embellish it. So again, I'm using some things left over from my stash, as well as these little bird embellishments. I've got some leaves and little bits of moss, again left over from old projects. I'm going to add a little bit of the moss to the yarn, as I just wanted to add a little touch of green just to help to break up the pattern of that color. I really love this look. I think it looks so cute. I'm adding the large bird onto the branch now. At this point, it depends on the kind of branch you are using, and it depends on how you want to decorate it. I'm now adding the cute little bird to the rim of the nest. It looks like a little fledgling. And from here, I just continue to add the little decorative elements that I had in my stash. Again, all left over from old projects that I had taken apart. A lot of times, these little bits will end up in the trash if you get tired of a project, but I love to be able to reuse little bits and pieces whenever I can. And a project like this is perfect for that. Okay, and here it is. I am so in love with this sweet little bird's nest on the branch. It is a perfect nature-inspired DIY. So for our next DIY, we are using another jar with a lid, and I've already glued on my half foam ball round. I'm using this sock that is left over again from another project, and I'm going to be slipping this sock over top of our jar and the foam round. Now, it is going to be kind of bulky, but I'm going to tie it off first, and then I'm going to be trimming off any excess of the sock fabric. So for the next part of this DIY, you're going to need one of these mesh strainers. I picked it up from Dollar Tree, and we're going to be using the large size. I also have this thin natural cotton fabric, again from my stash, and I placed the mesh on top of the fabric, and then I'm going to be drawing a circle with a pencil about 2 inches out, and then I'm going to be cutting it out. Don't worry about all the wrinkles. It's not going to affect this project. Just use it as is, and a thinner cotton fabric works best. So I'm just making sure that it is the right size and it covers up the mesh. I'm now going to be using that mixture of 2 parts decoupage glue with 1 part water, and I'm going to saturate the fabric. Once it's fully saturated, you can then remove it and squeeze out all the excess. Make sure your surface is protected, as this is a bit of a messy project. I'm then going to open up the fabric, and I'm going to drape it over the top of the mesh. And then using either a hair tie or an elastic band, you're then going to place that over top where the portion of the mesh is sticking up. Then you're going to set it aside and allow it to dry. Now, my craft room is in a basement, and I have an air vent that blows down, so I always place projects like this underneath that air vent. Things dry quickly. So while the fabric is now drying, I am going to use some beautiful lace that I had in my stash, and I need a needle and thread, and I'm going to tie this thread off on the corner of my lace trim here, and then I'm going to be doing a running stitch along the edge of this lace. Now, again, if you haven't figured it out yet, yes, we are creating another gnome, and this one is going to be a girl gnome, and we're creating a cute little skirt for her. So both ends of our string have got long strands left on each end. And now I am going to be pulling the lace in around our little gnome to create the skirt. And once our skirt reaches the back side of our gnome, tie the 2 ends off to form the skirt all the way around our sweet little gnome. So our hat is all dry, and I've already removed the band. And now you can loosen this hat off of the strainer by just poking it and kind of wiggling it. It comes loose very easily. And there you have a really sweet little hat. So here I have some chunky yarn I picked up from my local dollar store. You can pick it up from Michael's as well. And we're creating some pigtails. I just made sure I had the correct measurement, and now I'm just kind of fluffing them up, and then I am going to be tying each end into clumps. One end is going to be longer than the other, and then you can glue these into place. You will need 2 clusters like this. So before I add the hair, I decided that I wanted to tack down the skirt as I felt like it was a little too poofy. So I'm just adding little touches of hot glue onto the body and pressing the lace into that glue. So now I'm just going to figure out the placement for the hair. And I like to glue the hair towards the front of the body. And as you can see, I'm gluing it near the top. And if you need to make adjustments, feel free to do so. Just, you kind of have to base this off of the type of jar that you have. So I felt it just needed a touch more on the skirt. So I dove into my stash and I'm going to add this little bit of trim to the top of my skirt, and it'll really finish it off nicely. Again, I'm just using some hot glue to put it into place. So I'm adding just a touch more hot glue there where the hair is, and I'm pushing it together. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I really wanted the clumps of the hair and the body to fit underneath the hat, and it wasn't before. Once you've got that all figured out, you will then add some hot glue onto the hair and body and press your hat over top of the clumps. And now you've got a sweet little hat for your gnome. I'm going to tack the hat into place on the back of the head by using some hot glue. And as you can see here, isn't she just so sweet? I just love that little hat. I'm using this trim that I had in my stash, and I'm going to use some hot glue to put it into place. So I'm just working in sections to adhere this into place. As shown, I'm just adding this around the rim. So I started to tie it off, and then I thought, you know what? I'm going to tack the front of the rim into place as well, folding it up as shown. And then that way here you can see the face of your gnome a little bit better. I just felt like my rim was so big that it was covering up the face a little too much. And I thought it also gave it a really cute and fun look. And now I'm just going to tie my little trim off in a bow. And we're gonna add our little nose into place. I tuck that in underneath the hat and between the hair. So cute, I love it. You could also add some ribbon trim to the braids if you'd like. Here I've got some leftovers again from old projects, flowers and some leaves, and I'm going to embellish the hat. This will make a really sweet and cute little Easter type bonnet or spring hat. I think it looks so cute. I love this. I really love how this hat turned out. I was so happy. And here she is all done. So perfect for Easter or spring. A really fun and whimsical little touch to your home decor. So as always, I would absolutely love to know which project was your favorite. I want to say a big thank you to Casey and Gnome for hosting us, as well as my fellow creators for joining in, and I want to thank all of you for watching. Have a wonderful day. See you in the next one. Bye.